In a convent, Sister Mary prays before an image of Mother Mary for several minutes. After her prayer, she removes her veil and moves the painting to reveal writing that had been hidden on the wall. She then grabs her bag and sneaks into the Mother Superior's bedroom to steal her keys. With the keys in hand, Mary rushes to the front gate and desperately tries each key to unlock it. Just as she's attempting to escape, 4 nuns slowly come closer to her. Terrified, Mary finally manages to unlock the gate, but unfortunately the chain remains stuck, allowing her only to push it open slightly. She squeezes through the narrow opening, but falls as she reaches the other side. One of the nuns grabs her ankle and pulls her back, breaking Mary's leg by pushing it against the fence bars. She screams, and the excruciating pain causes her to lose consciousness. When Mary awakens, she strikes a match and realizes she's inside a coffin. She cries while trying to open it, but it won't budge, indicating she's been buried alive. Mary continues to yell for help, but no one responds. Sometime later, American novice Cecilia arrives at an Italian customs office where a soldier is inspecting her bag. Another officer points out that she doesn't have a return ticket and hasn't learned any Italian. The officer tells her that she's too young to become a nun and that this life is completely different from what she used to. It's a hard choice, but Cecilia says she doesn't see it as a decision at all. Both men believe she's wasting her youth by joining a convent. After receiving her paperwork, she's allowed to leave. Deacon Enzo picks Cecilia up, and they drive for hours through the countryside before finally reaching the convent. The Mother Superior welcomes her in Italian, which Cecilia doesn't understand, so Isabel translates for her. When Mother Superior instructs Isabel to show Cecilia to her room, Isabel attempts to refuse, but Mother Superior insists. On the way to the room, Isabel explains that the convent was established in 1632 as a refuge for elderly sisters before they transitioned to heaven. The building sits atop the St. Stephen catacombs, which are off limits. As they walk through rooms filled with older women, Isabel greets everyone warmly before informing Cecilia about a nun who will die next week due to tumor. Cecilia is shocked by Isabel's casual discussion of death, but Isabel explains that death is part of everyday convent life. When an elderly nun with dementia named Francesca asks about her father, Isabel plays along while telling Cecilia it's best to indulge these delusions unless they become violent. Cecilia pauses to listen to the choir and notices a nun staring at her. Isabel then hurries her to her new room while explaining the daily schedule. When Cecilia expresses her honor at serving, Isabel patronizingly calls her sweet and warns her that here, working hard physically and emotionally, the convent is a difficult place to live. Also tells Cecilia she can still go back, and God will forgive her, but Cecilia disagreed with it, so Isabel told her not to be late for tomorrow's ceremony. Later, while Cecilia is using the toilet, Gwen secretly bursts into smoke. They begin talking, and Cecilia shares that her previous parish closed due to low attendance. She was then recruited by Father Tedeschi, whom Gwen describes as very talented at finding runaways. In the evening, a special service is held for the novices to take their vows. The girls walk down the corridor holding candles, and Cecilia finally meets Father Tedeschi in person. Cardinal Franco leads the Mass and speaks with each novice individually. Tedeschi translates Franco's words for Cecilia before she receives her rosary. Though happy to take her vows, Cecilia hesitates slightly before kissing Franco's ring. Afterward, a dinner party is held to celebrate the new sisters. Cecilia converses with Tedeschi, who admits he was interested in science in his youth but believes God showed him a different path. In return, Cecilia shares that when she was 12, she was playing on a frozen river when the ice broke, plunging her into extremely cold water. Paramedics saved her after her heart had stopped for nearly 7 minutes. She believes God saved her for a reason and wants to discover why. When Cecilia goes to the bathroom, she hears an odd sobbing sound. She follows the noise to the chapel and finds a woman praying on the floor, lying in a room behind the altar. As Cecilia approaches to check on her, she's shocked to see the woman's face covered by a strange red mask. Suddenly startled by a presence, Cecilia turns to find Mother Superior, who assures her the woman is simply a nun lost in prayer. Mother Superior then takes a nail from a box, revealing it to have been taken from Jesus' toe, and places it in Cecilia's hands. As the woman speaks about Jesus' suffering, Cecilia begins to feel dizzy and faints. The next day, Cecilia goes to confession, blaming her fainting on having too much wine. She apologizes for disgracing herself in front of Mother Superior and promises to do better. The priest in the booth remains silent, merely glancing at her before disappearing into the shadows. As Cecilia stares in confusion, 2 hands suddenly reach through the wall and pull her back. Terrified, Cecilia is dropped on a bed in a strange room where 5 nuns wearing red masks appear before her. Mysterious hands hold her face as a masked nun stabs her with a dagger. But at that moment, Cecilia awakens, realizing it was a nightmare. When she looks around, she's shocked to see Francesca staring at her from the doorway. Cecilia turns on the lamp and the woman disappears. In the morning, Mother Superior addresses all the young nuns about their new duties. During the meeting, Gwen continues to talk to Cecilia, prompting Mother Superior to scold her. Later, Isabel demonstrates the convent chores to the new nuns, including washing bedridden elderly sisters, doing laundry, and killing chickens for dinner. As the days pass, Gwen and Cecilia become close friends, finding moments of joy during their chores despite witnessing many elderly nuns die. One day, Cecilia notices Isabel staring at her from afar, but she quickly vanishes. That night, Cecilia wakes to feel something and discovers Francesca cutting some of her hair. Francesca calls Cecilia blessed and says everyone adores her, but Cecilia doesn't understand her Italian. Cecilia then takes Francesca to the infirmary and tucks her in, not realizing Francesca called her Saint Cecilia. The blankets aren't large enough to cover Francesca's feet, and Cecilia notices strange scars shaped like crosses on them. The following day, Cecilia tells Gwen everything that happened and admits the convent isn't what she expected. However, Gwen says it's better than her previous situation. There was a boy who kept hitting her, so she hit him back, and as punishment, Gwen was sent to a support group led by nuns who inspired her to become one. Suddenly, Cecilia vomits, so she goes to see Dr. Gallo, who runs some tests. While waiting for results, Cecilia hears a noise and looks outside to see a masked nun wandering. At that moment, a crow crashes against the window, startling Cecilia. After a quick look at the bird's body, Cecilia follows Mother Superior to an office where Franco, Tedeschi, and Gallo are waiting for her. An angry Franco demands to know if Cecilia has been with a man, and she swears she hasn't. Gallo confirms that when she arrived, he examined her and noted she was still a virgin. Mother Superior adds that they haven't had any visitors recently before hiding Cecilia's red file in a drawer. Cecilia is then taken to the infirmary, where Gallo uses an ultrasound scanner to reveal she's pregnant. After the initial shock, Franco declares the child was conceived without sin and is therefore a miracle. However, Cecilia can only stare at the screen in horror. Later, Cecilia asks Tedeschi why she was chosen. Tedeschi suggests this might be why she was saved as a child and reminds her that the meek shall inherit the earth. Afterward, Cecilia is given special ceremonial clothes and taken to the chapel, where all the nuns sing praises to her. 5 months later, Cecilia wakes with morning sickness. She's in the second trimester of pregnancy. She coughs up blood and is shocked to find she's lost a tooth. At breakfast, everyone stands in her presence except Gwen. Cecilia is given special food and told not to work as she must focus on the baby. Gwen mockingly says they'll soon start calling her Mary. Later, while relaxing in the bathing pool, Isabel suddenly pushes her underwater, attempting to drown her. After a struggle, Cecilia bites Isabel's hand and frees herself, but Isabel jumps on her again, pushing her down and saying it was supposed to be her. At that moment, other nuns rush in and drag Isabel away as she screams, "Try with me again." Afterwards, Cecilia goes to the infirmary, where Gallo confirms the baby is fine. She mentions what Isabel said and asks for an explanation, but Tedeschi claims Isabel has been mentally ill for some time and promises it won't happen again. Growing nervous, Cecilia asks to be taken to a real hospital with a real doctor, mentioning she lost a tooth. However, the men believe she won't be safe in public if word gets out, insisting she must stay in the convent until the Savior is born. Later, while taking a walk, Cecilia sees 2 masked nuns at a window. Suddenly, a nun falls from the roof and everyone in the garden screams. Cecilia runs to check the body and discovers it's Isabel, whose face is destroyed. During the funeral, Gwen tells Cecilia she doesn't trust the convent or what's growing inside Cecilia. Tedeschi interrupts them, but Gwen ignores him and loudly calls out her superiors, demanding to know what's truly happening. She uses profanity, so Tedeschi and Enzo have to drag her away. That night, Cecilia couldn't sleep. Suddenly, one of the chains on a painting breaks, leaving it hanging crookedly. Cecilia discovers the image was hiding a Bible quote written in Italian on the wall. She checks her own Bible and reads about Satan masquerading as an angel of light. Growing worried, Cecilia looks for Gwen but can't find her in the bedroom. She then goes to the office to get her file, but the drawer is locked. She freezes when she hears a noise and sees a light in the neighboring room, but it quickly disappears. When Cecilia finds a knife, she uses it to open the drawer and retrieve her file. Inside is a newspaper article about her accident and some DNA test results. Suddenly, Cecilia hears Gwen yelling and follows the noise outside. Voice comes from behind a wooden door and Cecilia peers through the keyhole. Gwen has been strapped to a chair and the masked nuns are using tools to cut out her tongue. A terrified Cecilia steps back and someone catches her from behind. It's Francesca, who gives her an amulet made with her hair. Cecilia asks Francesca to help her leave, but Francesca tells her in English, "You'll never leave this convent." The next morning, everyone wakes to Cecilia's screams. Superiors run to her room and find her belly bleeding. Since it's Gallo's day off, Mother Superior wants to take her to the hospital. Initially, Tedeschi refuses, but Cecilia begs for her life, so he takes her to Enzo's car. After they leave, Mother Superior prays in Cecilia's room and notices a feather on the floor. She looks under the bed and finds the dead chicken Cecilia used to fake her bleeding. On the road, Tedeschi receives a call informing him of the truth and makes Enzo stop. Cecilia realizes they know and tries to run away, but the men quickly catch her and drag her back. At the convent, Mother Superior forces Cecilia to take a very cold shower. When Cecilia says God won't forgive them for their treatment of her, Mother Superior slaps her. Afterwards, Cecilia is tied to a wheelchair and taken to the room behind the altar. By now, she's guessed someone impregnated her and demands an explanation. Tedeschi takes the nail and explains they found remnants of blood and bone on it, which provided the genetic code of the Messiah. This could be their chance to bring Jesus back. When Cecilia calls him insane, Tedeschi shows her a room where he stores jars with all the failed attempts. He reveals he has been trying to resurrect Jesus for 20 years and believes Cecilia is the perfect vessel. He then takes her to his lab and explains that as a scientist, he worked on genetics, but his peers disapproved of his experiments. Tedeschi became a priest because he knew the church would allow him to experiment if it meant bringing Jesus back to life. Enzo holds Cecilia's feet while Tedeschi marks them both with a hot cross. Cecilia's feet burned by the cross sign. Afterward, Cecilia is left alone in her room. When she tries to leave the wheelchair, her wounded feet make it difficult to move and she falls. After struggling, she reaches the door only to find it locked and she breaks down. A few weeks later, she's now in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Cecilia goes to confession with Franco and asks many questions, but Franco doesn't answer any. While talking, Cecilia plays with her rosary and breaks a nail. She pulls it off and finds her finger covered in a sticky substance. Franco finally speaks, pointing out that if this weren't God's will, he would have already stopped them. A few days before her due date, Gallo performs another ultrasound and confirms the child is moving. Gallo then goes to look for medicine and leaves the door open. Cecilia uses the opportunity to grab a crucifix and repeatedly hit Mother Superior on the head until she's dead. When Cecilia leaves the room, she feels something wet and realizes her water has broken. Moments later on the balcony, Cecilia surprises Franco from behind and begins choking him with her rosary. Eventually, Franco drops dead, witnessed by Gallo, who immediately runs away. After taking Franco's lighter, Cecilia goes to the chapel and feels her first contraction. Refusing to give up, she grabs the holy nail before rushing to the lab, where she spreads ethanol all over the floor and equipment. At that moment, Tedeschi appears and tries to approach, but Cecilia pulls out the lighter. Tedeschi attempts to reason with her, pointing out that if she dies, they'll just find another girl. His monologue is interrupted when Cecilia has another contraction, and Tedeschi tries to take the lighter. Cecilia breaks a bottle over his head and runs out of the lab, locking the door behind her. Tedeschi reaches through the window to grab her hair, so Cecilia breaks one of his fingers. She notices ethanol leaking under the door, drops the lighter, and the lab quickly catches fire. After a small explosion, Cecilia thinks it's over, but unfortunately, Tedeschi finds a fire extinguisher and puts out the flames before pounding on the door. A terrified Cecilia continues having contractions that make movement difficult. When Tedeschi finally breaks down the door, Cecilia forces herself to take the stairs to the catacombs. There are flashlights by the entrance, so she grabs one to search for a hiding place. After wandering for a while, she hears Tedeschi coming, so she hides in a random, very dark room and turns off the flashlight. She remains quiet while Tedeschi walks down the corridor, waiting until he's gone before turning the flashlight back on. When she turns around, she's horrified to find Gwen's tortured body. Cecilia continues moving and finds a hole in the wall leading outside. She starts climbing through it, but Tedeschi pulls her back. He holds her down and begins praying while ripping her dress to expose her belly. Tedeschi pulls out a scalpel and starts cutting her belly to get the baby, causing her to scream in unbearable pain. Cecilia focuses on reaching into her pocket for the nail and stabs Tedeschi in the neck, killing him. Tedeschi's blood splashes onto Cecilia's face. Afterward, a crying Cecilia pushes his body off and finally climbs through the hole to go outside. At that moment, she collapses and screams as she gives birth to the baby. After cutting the umbilical cord with her teeth, Cecilia becomes terrified of her own child because it keeps making animalistic noises. She decides to grab a large rock and crush the baby to death.